And good morning, Dave in the AM, the Cornbread Man, on your Monday, July 27th, 2026. We hope you're doing well today. We'll get into a few things. Let's get our Bible verse in first, always. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had a good day at church. Here we go. Here we go. All right, there it is. There is none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee, neither is there any rock like our God. 1 Samuel 2:2. Love it. Love the image too. What a great image that is. So there you go. There's none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee. That's it. Nobody else. There's no other. No plan B. Just God. Neither is there any rock like our God. People try, but they don't get anything out of it. There's nobody listening. There's nothing there. All right. Let's move on to our National Day. A couple I want to mention today. Today is National Cousins Day. Cousins. I have a lot of cousins. Shout out to all my cousins. We're all getting older, but I got a lot of cousins. A few of them have passed on, and we honor their memory. So, thinking about them this morning. National Amelia Earhart Day. She was a trendsetter. Sad ending, still mystery. But she was an inspiration to pilots as well as women worldwide. It's one of those life mysteries. Every time they say they got it solved, and people say, no, that's not right, or there's false information. So I don't know. I really don't know. It's also National Tequila Day. I don't do tequila. I don't drink, but there's a lot of it out there. National Drive-Thru Day. So if you go through a drive-thru today, give the clerk, the person there, I say the clerk, but the person working the window, give them an inspirational message today. You know, they have to really be, you know, they have to really catch it sometimes. You know, the little girl the other day, bless her heart, I didn't like it, but I realized she was really trying. She just got confused. I didn't know it. And I'm sure she's thinking it's going to be an ugly phone call back. She gave me the wrong order. I was in a situation where I couldn't go back. And I said, well, I can eat this. And I just didn't worry with it. Probably cost about the same, and I just went with it. National Thermal Engineer Day. That's nowhere near my forte. So a few national days for you. Let's move that out of the way. A few fun facts about this day in history. In 1953, the Korean War armistice was signed, ending 3 years of conflict. They used to have they also established the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, or the KMZ, or whatever you want to call it. The gentleman in my church, his brother didn't make it out, but he got there just in time for the Chinese to throw all them divisions in, and so they were on retreat. I remember him telling me how cold it was that winter. And he also brought back a Korean cigarette. I don't know how he got that. He just one. He saved it. He just thought it was neat. And so all those years later, he's deceased now. But he had that. Okay, in 1996, Centennial Olympic Park bombing. Richard Jewell, what a terrible time for him. That's a great movie. If you've ever seen that, I mean, he was the perfect fall guy, but he wasn't guilty. I mean, you know, they just so wanted it to be, you know, the security guard, lived with his mom, you know, policeman, or had been one, wanted to be one, whatever. And they just destroyed his life. That was a good movie. That was Tom Hanks with it. And I know some people don't like Tom Hanks personally, but it was a good movie. Just horrible. You know, they ran with that story right away, made this guy public enemy number one. And, you know, that's the way they do you. You don't have to be guilty. They will mess your life. They being the authorities, the powers that be, whoever has authority over you has the power. They will ruin your life. They'll make it so nobody wants to hire you, and it's hard to get all that stuff off your record if you ever brought. It just kind of sticks to you. You have to go through a lot of. You really need to clean that up. If there's one thing we need, and there's a lot of things we need in this country, but for people who have been, and this goes back to like people's pardon. I mean, I know those records still sit there, but people who found innocent, those records need to be expunged out of there. They should not be able to be found um, by people looking up for job searches and stuff like that. That should not be showing up. And they don't. Somebody may not know your story. You was charged with murder, and you were not guilty, and you didn't do it. And later they caught the person or persons who did it or whatever. But your life's still messed up, and they really need to do something about that. I would. That'd be something I would really be for. And I know drug convictions and stuff. And after a time, I mean, there's supposed to be some of them are supposed to, but you got to go fight for that stuff. We really need to change that. Birthdays today, Selena Gomez. No, that's not right. Hang on. It tried to hang up on me for another day. I was thinking, I didn't look at that. That ain't right. I was going to say it was Triple H's birthday, 56 years old. Saw him once. I believe he was I was guarding at a wrestling match. So Triple H, 56 years old, and one of his cohorts, who was that? I saw it. Dolph Ziggler, 45 today, another wrestler. And I think I had one more. Oh, Alex Rodriguez is 50 today. Baseball player. That's probably all I want to cover on that. So, if it's your birthday today, happy birthday to you. Oh, let's go back before I did that. I flipped on the wrong thing. I'm going to give you a few more fun facts. Because there was the U.S. Department of State in 1789 was founded. It was originally called the Department of Foreign Affairs. How about that? In 1890, Van Gogh shot himself on this day and died 2 days later. Morbid, but a part of history. 1866, first permanent transatlantic telegraph cable was completed. Revolutionized global communication. That's true. I mean, man, imagine how hard that was at that time in 1866 to do that. Transatlantic cable. I mean, amazing. Now look where we're at, satellites all over the place, instantaneous news. It's really amazing. And I didn't realize that was as far back as 1866. Pretty amazing. In 1921, insulin successfully isolated. Frederick Banting and Charles Best achieved a breakthrough, that saved millions of lives. 1921. In 1949, the first jet airliner test flight, the Havilland Comet, marked a new era in aviation. True. Some would say it's went downhill some nowadays, though. 1940, on this day, Bugs Bunny's official debut in A Wild Hare, Hare, a defining moment in animation history. 1940 on this date. 1984, I was talking to a young lady. It was one of her favorite movies. Purple Rain, Prince. Was in 1984. I saw that movie it was a first date with my future wife. The girl, I guess, I just come from a different era, I guess. Maybe I'm shy. I don't. Not something I normally, I don't go watch movies for wild scenes or anything like that. Some people do. I don't. She was amazed to know that me and my wife both were embarrassed that there was a explicit scene in there. We didn't know. We just went to the movies, and we were both a little embarrassed, about that. Watch them first date. And people think, well, that's nothing. Well, to us it was, and it is. We didn't sit around watching that ever. It was not something that we sat around and watched ever in our life. In fact, that's probably the only time ever. We just didn't know it was there. That was our first date, and she's now been. Yesterday was 12 weeks. She passed away. Let's see here. Also, we talked about birthdays, but notable deaths today. Bob Hope, legendary, 2003, the great Bob Hope passed away. Funny, clean, Very funny. Innuendo, yes, but clean. The look, just the things he could do. Is it timing? I'm a big fan of early comedians. I know there's some and people are funny, and I've never enjoyed filth as comedy. Some people, that's their gig. Go for it. That's not my gig. I'm not judging you. I don't want it. I don't. I never liked it. It's it's too to me. One, I mean, it's too easy. That's the easy stuff. I mean, honestly, be a great comedian and be clean. And physical comedy is my absolute favorite. A look, a gesture, those things make me laugh much more than a one-liner. Never been a big fan of that. So you give me somebody that's really big in physical comedy. I thought Carol O'Connor was hilarious because of the way the looks he could have, and those things are much more funny. Many comedians like that. Um, Going into the news, CENTCOM, there's been 2 days of pause. Excuse me. The president says that the Iranians want to talk. We know the Houthis have been doing a little firing for them. In fact, the Saudis had fired on the Houthis. The U.S. top military commander of the Middle East recommended ending the bombing campaign around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there are some who say that we're running low on munitions. I don't think we're running that low, although it could be impacting. But I do think, there are people saying keep the hammer down, but I don't think anybody wants ground troops. Well, there might be some, but I'm not for that. But anyway, Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of CENTCOM, advised Pentagon leaders, the Joint Chiefs, and the White House last week that 2 weeks of sustained airstrikes had weakened Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping through the waterway. Multiple sources familiar with the discussion said his assessment, combined with advice from the other senior military officials, influenced the president's decision on Friday to suspend strikes targeting Iranian positions along Iran's southern coast and around the strait. The move marked the first pause in nearly 2 weeks of continuous military operations and reflected growing recognition among military commanders and civilian advisors that additional airstrikes would produce diminishing returns without a broader escalation of the conflict. The president made the decision following a Friday meeting with senior national security advisors and military officials who presented updated operational plans for the day's strikes. According to those familiar with those deliberations, so the president doesn't like these news leaking out. It has his whole time there. He had been leaning toward expanding combat operations earlier in the week, but began reconsidering that approach Thursday evening before finally deciding to halt the strikes. Cooper told the administration officials that most of the military's designated targets in the Strait of region had already been struck, leaving relatively few remaining objectives. The admiral said the U.S. could return to major combat operations to destroy roughly 20% of targets originally identified during Operation Epic Fury that were not attacked during the initial campaign. However, absent a decision to significantly escalate military operations, Cooper argued there is little value in continuing the limited bombing campaign that had been underway. Captain Tim Hawkins, a CENTCOM spokesman, declined to comment on Cooper's recommendation. Of course, he's not allowed to say anything. The pause in strikes also came as military leaders warned about broader operational challenges. Air Force General Dan Kane, Raising Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, privately cautioned War Secretary Pete Hegseth and the president that dwindling supplies, here it is, of air defense interceptors, the interceptors themselves, not the munitions, could reduce the military's ability to defend U.S. forces and regional allies if the conflict intensified. You'd be thinking they would have some factory somewhere working triple shifts and adding more, you would think. Expensive, yes. Needed, absolutely. While the military operations have slowed, diplomatic efforts continue, Axios has reported. Iran and Oman remained engaged in negotiations aimed at reopening the strait, or an arrangement intended to ensure that commercial vessels can transit the shipping lane without coming under attack, and that we would also need that to be no tolls. So It remains unclear whether any agreement negotiated between Tehran and Muscat, is that Oman's capital, Muscat? I didn't know that. Would satisfy the Trump administration if negotiations fail or Washington rejects. So we will see. So a pause for the calls to see what happens here. I think that Victor Davis Hanson, his article I read last week, or about a week ago, maybe a little over a week ago, I think it's probably on point to what's fixing to happen here. Is that they're just trying to get to a point where they can turn it over to those regional stakeholders, and get them to take over the responsibility now that we have knocked it so far down, and have each country take a part in sort of a coalition of force in there, with the backing that we could come back in if needed, and we'll still be patrolling there. So Iran says that attacks have halted as long as U.S. maintains pause. Senator Kennedy said stay the course against them. He said that a pause in strikes this weekend should not signal a broader change in strategy. Quote, I think we ought to tighten the sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil. I think we ought to continue the blockade and starve them out. I think we ought to bomb Pickaxe Mountain and to try to reach what's underneath it. The president likes the daily attacks. Senator Kennedy said Trump believes that sometimes you have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys. He is absolutely, without a doubt, the guy with the best lines in all of Washington. Much more than the president. You have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys. He described Iran's leadership as irrational, comparing its rulers to serial killer David Berkowitz, the son of Sam and cult leader Charles Manson. They're more than mildly insane, Kennedy said, arguing the United States should not abandon its campaign despite the cost. I don't think we ought to just cut and run. If we can stand the pain of rising cost of energy, we need to stay the course, at least for a few more months. I also don't think we need to send in troops. So there's another kind of a broader look. Keep up the campaign, don't move the troops in, and keep the pressure up. I can't remember that one. Let's see here. A tanker has exploded after hitting a naval mine in the Hormuz. They mined the heck out of it. I'm sure they didn't find all of them. The Tasnim said the tanker, this is their official news agency, struck the mine after leaving the route designated by Iran in the strategic waterway. There was no immediate news or statement from them. I don't think it was one of theirs. Excuse me. Israel is another bit of news. Israel to allow international force into Gaza. They will allow a multinational security force to enter Gaza as a proposal under U.S. President Donald Trump's ceasefire plan for the enclave. An Israeli official said on Sunday, a day before the Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu heads to Washington. His security cabinet on Sunday approved the legal framework that will allow the force's entry to Gaza. Netanyahu is scheduled to depart for Washington on Monday and is expected to meet Trump on Tuesday. That will be all in the news and the protests that go with it, I'm sure. The official said that the mission, called the International Stabilization Force, will include 200 members from friendly countries such as Uganda and Morocco, deploying in areas that are not under Israeli control. Each contingent requires individual Israeli approval to enter Gaza. It was not clear when they would deploy, and so we'll see. Israel effectively controls an estimated 64% of Gaza, while nearly all of its 2 million people live on a sliver of land on the coast under Hamas control, mainly in makeshift tents or damaged buildings and facing dire conditions. Hamas has so far refused to disarm, and Israel said it will expand its area of control in Gaza to 70% of the enclave, where it has continued almost daily military strikes. Trump's plan included a board of peace. We talked about that a few months ago. With a budget, no, I don't think any money's been given yet. Nothing's happened. A lot of promises, but nothing tangible. This board would implement the peace framework and would oversee the security force, among other functions. The board is planning a pilot humanitarian zone for Gazans is what he kickstart the plan. So we'll see. But it's moving very slowly. Operations are still continuing, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. All right. So hold on just a second. Just a second. The Nikolai Mladenov is his Board of Peace envoy in Gaza. He welcomed the decision. It's a critical part of the agreed framework for stabilizing Gaza, supporting demilitarization, and enabling the transition to effective Palestinian transitional administration under NCAG. That's what they're calling this thing. That's what they're calling the Palestinian Civilian Administrative Body. So we'll see. I don't know. Who knows? Interesting. All right. Over the weekend, or it might have been late last week, but over the weekend, it was actually over the weekend, another senior Hamas leader has been killed. It was on Sunday, airstrike. A senior officer of the Hamas and Palestinian Internal Security Service in the Gaza Strip and an associate as they traveled in a vehicle through Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. The strike killed Colonel Wael El Ledawi, head of the service in central Gaza, and Major Ramez Abu Zarak, medics and the Hamas military ministry said. As I said, those strikes continue. Along that same time, 4 Israeli soldiers have been killed by militants. So I think 15 over the last couple of weeks of Israeli soldiers. So a very, very active, very tense scene. The Pentagon removed 4 troops from the killed during renewed fighting. They're no longer listed as part of the Iran war death toll, but have been placed in a new separate category. It's interesting. It is raising questions about properly counting the impact to U.S. service members as the administration has escalated strikes on Iran. The Defense Casualty Analysis System, which Pentagon officials have repeatedly pointed to as the definitive source on the numbers of dead and wounded and from the conflict, removed the 4 fallen soldiers, as well as dozens of wounded troops from its Iran war tally last week. A new category on Sunday was introduced called Overseas Operations, emerged on the system's website. Well, that's some funny math here. Listing the 4 Army deaths by name as well as 207 wounded. It was unclear if all the wounded were injured in the Iran conflict. CENTCOM did not respond. Pentagon Press Secretary Joel Valdez argued Thursday that the drop in casualty figures on the online system was not an effort to hide the growing human toll of the war, but whether the result of anomalies and temporary data disruptions that were being resolved imminently. As of as Tuesday, their website was reporting the war's official toll as 18 killed and 482 wounded. Didn't realize that was that. It appeared to reflect that 4 soldiers have been killed since fighting resumed, despite the signing of the agreement. Adding further confusion, when the Pentagon announced 2 of the deaths in Jordan, it said the troops were supporting the U.S. mission to counter the Islamic State group. The other 2 were announced in press conference simply as supporting overseas operations. The president has confirmed the toll, writing in a Truth Social post that the Iran military conflict has claimed 18 lives. By Wednesday, the Iran war figures in the Pentagon system fell to 14 dead, 420 wounded. However, a U.S. official told the AP that at the time the actual number of wounded has actually grown to well over 500 troops. The Pentagon's top spokesman took to social media that day to assert that the reported drop was a temporary data disruption. I'm sure their families would love that analysis. The Defense Casualty Analysis System, I'll look that up real quick. And there it is. I don't believe I've ever went here. I didn't know it existed. It has a few. So they're saying they've updated it to a new URL. So update your links to this. Let's see what this shows. Well, it's saying the same thing. Let's go. Operation Epic Fury. They did add that. I'm going to put this on the screen. Hold on 1 second. And we'll put this on the screen. It may be kind of small. But there you go. There it is. Let's see if I can hold that up just a little bit. There you go. You can see here they've added in this option, overseas operations. And there they are. So for some reason, they moved these 4, all from the Army, to this list. But underneath it was Epic Fury. Casualty type, different types of them. And the overall, they break it down by race and everything. I didn't know that. That's interesting. And there's the 14 right here. So this was 18. They took 4 away, added in the operations overseas. They took 4 away. That's strange. That is very strange. But they would leave these. And then the different forces by race, ethnicity, and then we've even had some National Guard and ages. And then there's your breakdown of 2 for the Air Force. Throw 5 total. 1, that's grade here, and then the different ones. Air Force, Army. It gives you 8 officers have been part of that total. 3 females, 11 males, total of 14, plus you add in these 4. And there you go. That's strange. I don't know why they would do that. I'm definitely going to bookmark that site. And so you go all the way back through all the wars. I just never knew this analysis system was here. We've always heard news. And so, but Isabella Gonzalez, Tyler James Feehan, Angel Rampersad, and Michael Swinton were all removed, all Army, from the other list and placed in this new category. You get operations overseas. Oh. There you go. That's odd. Don't know why they would do that. I mean, I could get them trying to change. I mean, no administration likes the numbers. They are what they are. So I could see them maybe, trying to do that. But interesting. That's strange. And the fact that they would call it, a almost an anomaly, that's temporary and all that. That's very strange. And they didn't even have the right number. Yeah, they're calling it an anomaly and temporary data disruption that were being resolved imminently. You added how is it temporary data disruption and an anomaly when you add a header called operations overseas and move 4 into it. That dog won't hunt. I'm sorry. Very strange. They need to explain that. Don't be monkeying around with people's kids like that. I mean, I get it. You get a right to report it, but why would you? I would be questioning his family, families of these slain. Why did you do that? What was the reason? I would be demanding answers. I mean, they're not. I'm not saying it's derogatory. It's just, but why would you move those 4 away, and you're calling it something else? Maybe because I wonder if it has something to do with relationships in the Middle East, and some country, doesn't want to be considered in that war. I can see that happening. Saying we don't want nothing a part of that, but it's still weird. I just don't get it. And why would you care? I mean, this whole Jordan thing, it could be around that, but I'd have to go back and look at that. That's very odd, don't you think? I mean, really, really odd. So I don't understand that. Moving into other news, the Trump administration, along with border czar Tom Homan, said that they are investigating about how they vet their ICE agents. They have 30,000, by the way, 30,000 plus ICE agents. And this one that was involved in the shooting of one, I think this one was from, I could be wrong with this. I have to look back down in the story a little bit. I'm trying to look. Yeah, he was from Colombia. I was right. Colombian immigrant Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero in Maine. But that the person that did the shooting, there's some troubling prior information about this gentleman, and it's not a person that maybe shouldn't be involved in this, and whether this and this guy, the other guy, had a long criminal history. Nothing, they're just people are bringing it up. So one of them is his ex-wife, Ashley Brulette, told the newspaper her ex-husband had a pattern of violent outbursts during their marriage, including instant when she alleged, again, nobody has proof, she alleged he threw boiling water on her while she was holding their young daughter. The report also said his 2 former wives accused him of abuse, that he was once ordered to surrender his firearms. Holman did not confirm that was the officer, David Brulette, but that said DHS is conducting both a criminal investigation in the shooting and an administrative review of the hiring process. When they hire someone, they put them through a vetting process and look at all that stuff, he said. Was that information not available? Did they not know? So there's a separate administrative investigation of what happened here. Duran, 25, was fatally shot during an encounter with the ICE officers in Bedford. His death sparked protests across Maine, while demonstrators calling for greater transparency and accountability from federal immigration authorities. The director says this is a kind of rare instance with as many as employed, but again, it's under review. So I think you can have 2 truths there. You could have someone who acted up violently and it ended up going that route, but you could also and I don't know if there's a criminal investigation. He's found to be criminally wrong there, then he'll face charges. But the other gentleman had a history too, a pattern, I think, well over 25 or 40 different instances of crime. I'm not saying he deserved to die. I'm saying that they go to review all that. So it could be 2 truths. Maybe he, he ended up getting killed because of actions he took. This other gentleman, though, because of his past history, maybe shouldn't be in that role and removed. Of course, if he's found to be a criminal in his actions, then he would be charged as well and go on trial. I mean, both could be true. UN Ambassador Mike Waltz, on Sunday defended the administration's newly signed civilian nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia, which some have questioned a lot, insisting the deal does not permit uranium enrichment and sharply distinguishing it from Iran's nuclear program amid growing concerns on Capitol Hill. Politico has reported. I'm sorry, I am congested. Wall said the agreement is strictly limited to civilian nuclear energy and does not transfer sensitive enrichment technology to the kingdom, telling NBC's Meet the Press that there is no enrichment envisioned in this plan. He reiterated the point on Fox News Sunday, saying that we are not exporting enrichment capability to the Saudis. These are civilian nuclear power plants as the Saudis look to diversify. But the difference is they've signed up for full inspections. There is no enrichment. Where's it enriched at? I mean, do we bring it? Are we shipping it over? I guess they're saying enriched to that nuclear bomb capability. I guess that's what they're saying. The U.S. has not exported nuclear reactor technology in decades and stressed that any cooperation with Saudi would remain subject to strict oversight. This will continue to be a matter of discussion in the weeks and months ahead. Employers fear labor shortage. I can tell you that's a struggle right now for many. But this one is related to the TPS, the temporary protected status of hundreds of thousands of foreign workers. If this ruling, after the Supreme Court's ruling in June, in Mullen versus Doe, stripped federal courts of authority to second-guess determinations. Industry groups say TPS holders are concentrated in sectors already short on labor, and that the compressed timeline of determinations give employers little runway to replace them. The National Association of Home Builders noted that foreign-born workers account for more than one-third of residential construction trades, and that TPS beneficiaries have helped ease the industry's chronic shortage. Healthcare employers have similarly warned that home health aides and nursing assistants with TPS are difficult to replace, and a workforce already strained by an aging population. The administration itself has flagged a tightening of the labor supply. An October Federal Register filing accompanying an H-2A wage rule cited a labor shortage worsened by tighter enforcement and warned of supply shock-induced food shortages, while acknowledging that Americans have not filled agricultural vacancies at scale. Trump has also expanded the H-2B seasonal visa count by roughly 65,000 for fiscal year 2026, according to a Reuters report of the Federal Register notice to relieve employer pressure. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision, authored by Justice Samuel Alito, held that the judicial review bar in the TPS statute forecloses non-constitutional challenges to a Homeland Security Secretary's decision to end a country's designation. That cleared the administration to unwind protection for roughly 350,000 Haitians and about 6,000 Syrians. Since the ruling, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service has held Asian work authorization together with short extensions, and on July 22nd, the D.C. Circuit rejected the administration's bid to let permits lapse on July 24th, keeping protections in place at least through, guess what, today. TPS for nationals from Ethiopia, Myanmar, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen is on a parallel track after DHS moved in early July to wind those designations down. DH Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, sworn in on March 24th after replacing Christian Noem, has defended the terminations as consistent with the statute's temporary design, telling CNN State of the Union that long-tenured TPS holders can pursue permanent residence or other visas if they qualify. Business and advocacy groups counter that beneficiaries have averaged years, and in some cases decades, in the U.S. workforce, and that few realistic pathways exist for most living employers to absorb the loss. For now, the immediate task is I-9 compliance as expiration dates shift, and employers are losing people to these things, and there are many going back home and trying to get this straightened out. And I know of some that were even not even looking to seek to promote until they got this straightened out for fear they would be sent back, and then trying to go through the process to come back in the country. So we'll see. But it's a reality. I mean, when you have that much disruption. Now, I like to cover Robert Papp, political contributor from the University of Chicago. He's a political scientist. That's his proper designation. He appeared on Newsmax's Sunday Agenda. He's been covering this a lot about the Iran war. He said that the conflict, he has described, I've mentioned this before, as an escalation trap, making it difficult for Trump to significantly alter course despite the war's declining public support. Quote, there's no getting around the fact that this is an unpopular war. All the opinion polls, pretty much, from the beginning, 145 days ago when the war began, showed that a majority of the public did not support the war. At the same time, he said his political base continues to back the military campaign. The majority of MAGA, President's key political base, does support the war. President Trump needs to be a hero in their eyes. That is how he has earned their trust, earned their faith, and earned their votes. But he doesn't need those votes anymore. But the midterms loom, and that's what he's speaking to here. He said the recent pause should not be interpreted as a sign that the conflict is winding down. I don't think it's the end of the war. I would agree with him. I don't think it is either. Instead, he suggested the pause reflects military considerations, including concerns about interceptor missile supplies. He said, we are going to reorient an air campaign to go and pound again the missile sites, especially the ballistic missile sites. He noted that Iran still possesses a substantial ballistic missile arsenal housed in underground facilities. Iran has somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 ballistic missiles, and these are underground. He predicted another phase of operations targeting missile infrastructure could last days, possibly several weeks, depending on operational requirements. We're seeing a longer war, not a shorter war. Responding to comments by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Iran must either abandon its nuclear program or see its regime sufficiently weakened, perhaps as such objectives point toward an extended conflict. What Netanyahu is talking about is certainly a forever war. That is the very definition of a forever war in the case, because Iran is just so big. He said the administration's optimistic rhetoric has become increasingly difficult to reconcile with realities on the ground. The victory rhetoric doesn't match escalation reality. It is out of sync. He said he stopped short of predicting a years-long conflict. He said meaningful policy changes are unlikely before the political landscape shifts after the midterm elections. I think it'll be after the midterms between now and January. This is not going to be over. And I would agree. I don't think you can end it now, in too deep. And I think it will go past the midterms, and it will have an effect, no matter what people think about it. I mean, there's people on all sides of it. All right. Let's see here. Israel has said that they will not launch a major military operation on Iran without U.S. approval before October's national elections. This is from what is his name? The former Israeli Consul General in New York, Ado Arani. He says, I don't think Israel will do anything without getting the green light from the president. It's highly unlikely Israel will act alone without coordination with the Americans at this point. President Trump said he's considering a major attack on Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to travel, of course, to today and meet with the president tomorrow. He does not expect Israel to independently re-engage Iran before the October 27th elections. He said the country could still play a military role if requested by the United States. If the United States were to re-engage Iran, it would require Israel to serve as a subcontractor, as Israel did in the past. I think then that will happen. This is certainly something that's in the cards. So another part of this. So that's a deeper article that I don't want to go all the way through, but they have their own elections coming up too. Dr. Fauci is going to be on testifying. Senator Ron Johnson said he expects little cooperation from Dr. Fauci, the former NIA, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Director. When he testifies before the Senate this week, Republicans prepared to question the longtime public health official about the federal government's response to, yes, that time in 2020, they'll still gig you for saying the words. He said, I don't expect to get much out of him. I think he'll be very forgetful, completely unrepentant, arrogant to the extreme. The senator said he intends to use Wednesday's hearing to highlight what he views as a failure in the government's handling of the pandemic, stressing that I'm going to try and lay out all the things that he did that were such a miserably failed response to it. The hearing comes after committee chairman Rand Paul subpoenaed Fauci to testify as part of the panel's investigation into the origins of that time and the government's involvement in research conducted in China. The Kentucky Republican has alleged that federal officials concealed information about U.S.-funded viral research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or any other. Republicans argue the virus that causes that may be originated. U.S. intelligence agencies remain divided over its origins. No definitive conclusion has been reached about whether it emerged from those laboratories or through natural animal to human transmission. Paul has repeatedly accused Fauci of misleading Congress regarding research funding and has argued the former NIAID director should face criminal charges. I don't think it'll ever happen. So he's already denied that. He said, I don't expect him to be honest. He hasn't been honest in the last 6 years. Paul said, we've been negotiating with him for material for testimony. This has gone on for some time. He slow-walked us, finally agreed to come in voluntarily. Then last week he says he's not coming in. With this subpoena power, we will bring him in unless he fights this in court. Fauci retired from government service in 2022 after advising 7 presidents dating back to the Reagan administration. He received a preemptive pardon from former President Joe Biden before Biden left office amid concerns that the Trump administration could pursue legal action against him. So that'll be all in the news as well. So be looking for that. Let me get a couple more things here. It is good news with this pause. The oil prices have eased a little bit. The price of a barrel of Brent crude has been dropped 4.9% to $92.02. That followed a 3.9% drop on Friday. It had briefly hit $102 a barrel last week. That was $30 more than the most actively traded contract in the Brent market was going for early in the month, and the highest it had been since May. And we would hope that they will continue to come down. The price for an average gallon of regular gasoline on Sunday was $4.11, up from $3.90 a month ago. I think I paid $3.79 when I got gas, and just $3.15 a year ago. If the oil prices stay elevated, it could lead to higher prices for every product that gets shipped, trucked, or flown around the world, including groceries. Although the U.S. economy continues to grow, the conflict with Iran has dragged consumer confidence in it lower. So there's one thing. That's why we need this. Another reason we need this, and they know that. The Iranians know that. And yes, Hawaii Lieutenant Governor is indicted in the corruption case. This was all over the news as well. Sylvia Luke, Lieutenant Governor, was indicted Friday on multiple felony charges, including, that Hawaiian leadership is it fair to say that it's kind of like the Chicago? We just don't hear about it as much, honestly. Including bribery and conspiracy following a state investigation, the allegations that she accepted campaign contributions in exchange for helping advance those COVID testing contracts while serving the state legislator, and Politico is reporting that. So this is not something that's from the conservative side. A Hawaii grand jury returned a 12-count indictment charging the Democratic Lieutenant Governor with criminal conspiracy to commit robbery and falsifying campaign committee reports. Hawaii Attorney General Ann Lopez announced during a Friday press conference. Quote, from the outset of this investigation, I have repeated that we have a commitment to following the facts to where they lead, no matter how long it takes to get there, Lopez told reporters. So we'll see. Let's say that's a rare occurrence that you see that happen, especially there. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah. Let's see here. Frank Cassidy, former federal housing commissioner, said that the Trump administration is pursuing the right strategy to, quote, let builders build, and when embraced by localities, is making American housing affordable. It's been a problem. He said the president's relentless drive to increase the nation's housing supply, which would also help my industry as well. Cut costly regulations and encourage new home construction rather than relying on government subsidies is working. Appearing on Newsmax Saturday Report with Rita Crosby, he argued that the nation's housing challenges stem primarily from years of underbuilding that have left demand far exceeding available inventory. The fundamental problem is that America has not built enough homes. We have a supply-demand imbalance. We as a country need to focus on increasing housing supply and reducing government regulation that makes it costly and timely to build. Cassidy previously served as Trump's Assistant Secretary for Housing at HUD and oversaw federal housing finance and FHA programs. His comments came as many prospective homebuyers continue to struggle with elevated mortgage rates and record home prices. Just this past week, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage reached 6.5%, significantly above the historically low rates many homeowners locked in during 2020 and 2021. When you look at the cost to build new housing, 20 to 40% of that cost is some type of bureaucratic red tape that ultimately gets passed on to the American consumer. I would agree with that. As a country, we need to build more homes. The U.S. median home price has climbed above $440,000 despite slowing home sales. So many Americans are renting. That's where a lot of people are going. Many Americans refinanced their mortgages in 2020 and 2021 at 2 or 3%. They're not willing to incentivize in any way to sell their existing home, pay off that mortgage and flip, and do a mortgage today at 6.5. Because of that, there's not much supply hitting the market, and it's driving prices up. He said the shortages of homes for sale is the key factor in making homes affordable. He stated that homes in places like California and New York are seeing record prices because localities do not speed new housing construction, thereby limiting supply. He noted that states like Texas and Florida and those across the Southeast have much more affordable housing because they encourage builders to build. Rather than expanding housing subsidies, he argued that policymakers should continue to remove barriers that discourage construction. The recently enacted 21st Century Road to Housing Act, described as one of the most significant housing measures in recent years, and evidence that the president's housing agenda is beginning to produce meaningful reforms. So we hope. It will help in a lot of ways for your flooring market. I mean, just so many different things are affected by those. So we'll see. We need to get off of here and head that way, I guess. So we'll see you tonight. Wednesday night, we do have 1 or 2 interviews. We're trying to reschedule another one. He's had some family health issues, helping with parent, and we understand that absolutely. And so pray for them. And we're trying to get back on schedule. We've had a bunch of technical things we're working through. I'm kind of still doing that, but hopefully we see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. And we'll get everything back on track. We did a little more recording than live due to that. I'm hoping this week we can get back on track with that. Have a blessed and wonderful day out there. Stay cool if you can. Entering into August, the schools will be picking back up. And what's a heat wave in the Midwest? Baking this week. Absolutely. Something like 80 million Americans or something like that is going to be in the heat. This heat, well, I forget what they call it, but it's just a big red splotch in the middle of the country, and it's going to be rough. It's really going to stretch, and it just caused this kind of heat, extreme heat, that maybe some are not as used to, really causes damage to maybe some of those systems that are just limping along. So some air conditioning units will probably go out. People that's maybe neglected cleaning them, getting service. This will be the week that they get hit pretty hard. Let's hope not, but that happens. It certainly happens. And let's pray for all involved. Pray for our men and women in uniform and our leadership. We always need to pray. And pray for us here. And have a great week. We'll be sending you around the old network. Don't forget we're on Roku now, as well as our Substack. And going live there, or recorded lives. But we are putting our lives there on Roku and excited about it. What a blessing that is. We will see you soon. Take care. We'll go out with music. God bless you. Hello.